Jesus. As the morning star in Revelations 22:16, Jesus declares to himself the root and the offspring of David. Interesting, if you know about David, if you know about the tree of life and where David sits on the tree of life, right? And the bright morning star. Jesus is called the bright and morning star. Just as Venus is 3 days and 3 nights below the horizon and then arises, so too does Jesus. So Jesus is a mystic, was a mystic, is a mystic. There's no time, space for that energy, just like Esther, just like the other matriarchs in the scriptures. And so his title as the morning star in Revelation 22:16 signifies not only his eternal reign, but also his role as the light that brings hope and salvation to humanity. The Ishtar root, right? A lot of people talk about Ishtar. The name Esther, Esther, could be seen as deriving from the name of the Babylonian goddess Ishtar, because Queen Esther became the queen of Persia. So Ishtar could be seen as from, or the Persian word cognate with the English word star, right? Implying an association with Ishtar. And civilizations such as the Babylonians and Mesopotamians revered the morning star as I do. Okay. If you don't have a relationship with this energy, stick around. It's the direct access mystics talk about and experience directly. So civilizations such as the Babylonians and Mesopotamians, that morning star, it's linking it to Ishtar, Esther, Jesus. So Esther's very name contains the goddess of Venus within it. She literally is the morning star, right? In her etymology, the eight-pointed star of Ishtar, symbol of Venus, is the same astronomical body there that gives Esther her name. Her name is Myrtle, right? The links to the tree. Well, I'll tell you more about that in a moment. Is called Ayelet HaShachar in the Talmud, and is claimed by Jesus as his own title in Revelation. The three converge on one celestial point. So, I talk about the energies of God being concealed, doubly concealed. Okay. And the name hidden, concealed, mysterious. It's not a coincidence that Esther, and if you're interested in Esther, I've done every year I teach on Esther. A few months ago, I taught on Esther and the mystical understanding and breaking that information down. But today we're just touching in on these energies and similarities. They are the same. So the names come from the Hebrew verb to hide, right? And many identities and mysteries are concealed in the book, including that of Esther herself. Esther has her own book, right? The book of Esther. She's one of the matriarchs. It doesn't say too much about it, but the mystical understanding of Esther, I'm just starting to unveil her. When I say her, the energy, right? The energy. So Esther enters the palace concealing her identity, right? Just a bit of an idea of what her journey was, right? But she enters the palace concealing her Jewish identity because the king wanted to kill all of the Jews at the time. Just sit with it, because there's more to this than a place and a space, right? Her Hebrew name is Myrtle, but she operates under the name that means hidden or star. The mystics saw this duality as spiritual intentional. It's intentional. So Jesus is described as the mystery hidden for ages, right? He's the mystery hidden from the ages, the hidden wisdom of God, concealed within the fabric, now revealed. So God is never named in Esther outrightly, but it's there. So the sovereign hand is evident throughout the entire book of Esther, in timing, in protection, in reversals of fate. And Jesus is sometimes referred to as the hidden or mysterious fulfillment of God's plan. So we go to Psalm 22, right? My God, why have you forsaken me? I wrote a song about this. I was going to put it in the background, but maybe I'll post it later, where Esther is saying, if I perish, let it be. This is the most stunning textual bridge between the two figures. So commenting on Esther 5:1, Rabbi Levi is quoted saying that as Esther passed through the hall of idols on the way to the throne room to plead with the king, right? To save my people, to not kill my people. Sounds like someone else too, doesn't it? Which energetically is correct as well. She felt Shekhinah. Do you know the Shekhinah, the word Shekhinah? It means divine presence, right? At Jesus's baptism, he states, holy wisdom, she rests in me. She, Shekhinah, divine presence, God's divine presence on earth. Leaving her, so back to Esther, leaving her, at which point she quoted Psalm 22:1, saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? Right. And according to the Gospels of Matthew and the Gospel of Mark, Jesus cried out the opening verse of Psalm 22 from the cross. Breathe. Breathe. So both figures at the moment of their supreme intercession, sacrifice, cry the exact same words. And Psalms 22's title, Deer of the Dawn, is itself the Talmudic name for Esther. The rabbis and the gospel writers drew from the same cosmic well. Also, it seems. So the rabbis said the sufferer of Psalm 22 was Esther, the morning star. Her light, they said, lit up the world. Her light lit up the world. So both are saviors. Both are saviors. Esther risked her life by going before the king to plead for the salvation of her people. Christ, as the ultimate intercessor, stood before God on behalf of humanity. Okay. Taking the punishment of sin upon himself, or so they say. Okay. Esther said, if I perish, I perish. That's in Esther 4:16, showing her willingness to lay down her life for her people. And Jesus willingly went to the cross saying, not my will, but yours be done. Right? Luke 22:42. Both make the ultimate threshold crossing. Esther entering the inner court of the king, unsummoned. Now you got to understand that the unsummoned is a capital offense. She went to the king knowing that she could be killed. Jesus entering death itself. So both do so on behalf of others and both succeed, right? So the 3 days, let's talk about the 3 days. The 3 days, there's a reference of 3 days that is important in Esther 4:16. It probably correlates to those 3 days before Jesus's resurrection, or I won't say probably, it does. Esther calls a 3-day fast before her great intercession. Okay, before she goes before the king. She asks her uncle Mordecai to tell the people to fast for 3 days, right? She's about to go, possibly to her death. So in that trembling, the awe, the fear of unconditional love, the awe where she's trembling as she's walking, just like Jesus, walking into the gates Palm Sunday. But even before that, knowing. So the Kabbalistic secret behind this, that Esther's 3-day fast, or 3 days and nights, contains 72 hours, corresponds to the exalted 72-letter name of God, with the power of which God split the Red Sea. It was the power of his name, or this name, that the divine life force comes to Esther's supernal source. Three days of death, hiddenness before emergence into light. The structural resonance is not accidental. The Kabbalistic layers of Esther as Shekhinah or malchut. Let's go into that. So this is where your Kabbalistic framework comes alive, right? Kabbalists teach that the Shekhinah occupies the Jews through their exile into Babylon. So the Shekhinah is the presence of God within the exiled, within you. Okay? The mother, the feminine aspect of God that is in everything in the world. Okay? The light, the presence. So Shekhinah accompanied the exiled into Babylonia, which later becomes Persia, Esther's home. And in the book of Esther, Shekhinah seems to be everywhere in the Persian royal court. The word malchut, which is the lowest or the bottom, the last eminence or sephira on the tree of life. Okay. And is the royal crown or majesty or Shekhinah, and it appears 17 times. So when Esther prepares to approach the king to save her people, right, she clothes herself in garments of majesty. And after the Jews are saved, Mordecai is her uncle, enters the public square clothed in garments of majesty. So Kabbalistically, he too wears the guise of Shekhinah, the presence of God in the world, revealing her constant, majestic presence. So spiritually, all who see are awakened and transformed, hidden and revealed, hidden and revealed. That's the paradox. So the entire book of Esther is the story of malchut, the mother, the lowest sephirot, the feminine divine presence descending into the deepest exile. So Persia was the place of the Gentile king, right? And from within that very darkness ignited the miracle of redemption. This is identical to the reading of incarnation, the divine descending into the most contracted form, flesh, the density of this world, and death in order to be redeemed from within. From within. So Esther was placed in the palace for such a time as this. It says in Esther 4:14, right? The book of Esther, showing God's timing. Christ came into the world at the perfect time to fulfill God's redemptive plan. That's in Galatians 4:4-5. So both figures who are cosmically positioned are not accident. They're not by accident at all, but by divine architecture. Exactly where they need to be at exactly the right moment to accomplish what no one else could. So the myrtle, so Esther's name before it was Esther. So in the Bible, they all had different names and they were changed. Esther's Hebrew name, Hadassah, means myrtle tree. The myrtle is associated with Shekhinah. Shekhinah with the hidden fragrance. Oh, this is so mystical. So mystical. If you stick with it, these are just little nuggets of such deep spiritual teachings. And the truth is, when you see the light, the truth in one area, in one story, you see it in all. This is what I'm showing you. This is what I'm showing you. The hidden fragrance. So with the myrtle, it releases a scent when it's crushed. Oh, where else do we see that? So the crushing of the olives. Yeah, they're the same stories. Okay. And with souls who carry beauty inwardly rather than outwardly. Esther carried the spark inside, inwardly. Esther's name means star or myrtle. Her Hebrew name also means myrtle. A star emits light, which is precisely the role of the one who is a light in the darkness, as Jesus is light. So the myrtle releases its fragrance only under pressure, just like the grape, just like the olive, okay, in the Bible. So both Esther and Jesus became most radiant at the point of greatest compression. She facing death in the palace, he on the cross. So the doe of the dawn. This is the Zohar's feminine reminder. You know, This was the 13th century Spain when the Jewish mystic wrote the Zohar. And it's in the Zohar that the new old myth of the doe of the dawn burst forward, showing goddess in animal form in a kindlier, more nurturing and redemptive light. The Zohar states, what is the doe of the dawn? A creature whose mercy is unparalleled among all the animals. When she realizes there is a state of emergency and she needs food for herself and all the animals, what does she do? She goes off and brings back food. Okay. She goes to the far country, far off country, into exile, into the court of the alien king, into the darkness for the sake of all. This is the Kabbalistic feminine savior archetype. Not a warrior who conquers from external, without, but a vessel who descends and retrieves from within. So we've got the morning star, the bright morning star, the hidden identity, we have the intercessor savior, the risks of death before the king for her people, dies for humanity before the Father. The 3 days, the 72 letters of God, God's name, the 3 days in the tomb for Jesus, the divine appointment, the saying for such a time as this, fullness of time, the Shekhinah's presence, clothes herself in malchut, or the divine feminine, Shekhinah in exile, God with us, divine indwelling, and the name Esther, star, hidden, myrtle, and Jesus, Yeshua, salvation. Darkness before the dawn, darkness before the dawn, the end of the long night, conclusion of all miracles, the resurrection after death. So, what is so extraordinary here, especially through the Kabbalistic lens or the mystic lens, I'll share more on other traditions, is that Esther is not simply foreshadowing of Jesus, but may represent the same cosmic archetype expressed through the feminine vessel, the divine presence descending into exile, hiddenness, the mortal danger, and from within that very darkness, becoming the threshold through which the people are redeemed. What does that even mean? She is the malchut, the divine feminine walking into Persia. He is the light clothed in flesh walking into Rome and death. The morning star rises before the sun. It announces what is coming. It is both the end of the night and the herald of the day. And both Esther and Jesus carry that same astronomical soul. So on Easter, Esther, remembering, celebrating Jesus, right? Maybe it's just about remembering the morning star, the space between the night, the dark, and the day, the light. The feminine, the great mother, is the third space, the third layer. between heaven and earth. And she rests within us, as Jesus told us at his baptism. Holy wisdom, she rests in me. So yes, Jesus was a great mystic. He embodied the Shekhinah, the great divine mother. He said to get to the Father is through me, right? Through the Shekhinah, through the feminine. He was the mother divine. So the mother and divine feminine are different. There's levels. It's not necessarily about working towards the merger of the masculine and feminine. First, we have to unite and remember the aspects of the feminine within each of us. Okay? And these mystics show us the way. It's just been so bastardized that majority of people cannot see what they've been saying, what their stories actually mean. Okay. So I've seen so many posts about Jesus being a feminist. It goes deeper than that. It goes deeper than that. Holy wisdom, she rests in me, he said. The Shekhinah, the presence, the presence of God that is in everything in the world is the divine aspect. When we touch into, have a relationship with the divine aspect, bam, we have access to everything and all. Yes. I'll bring you mystical understandings and knowings. Also, how to experience that directly, but it's up to you what you believe, what you walk forward with. I'm not here to force any changes. My job, my role, what I'm committed to is unconditional love, which is the relationship with love, but also fear. Masculine and feminine aspects. And once we can hold and be in that paradox, we have unconditional love. So until we meet again, may the blessings be. Much love. And thank you for joining. And give us a follow before you go. Those of you who are watching on other platforms, you can go to the Mystic Cynthia on TikTok and follow that so that I can do some more lives there.